The following program is rated T for teen for the use of tools and materials that can be harmful to unsupervised usage. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, Mr. Waugh here from Mr. Waugh Media, and yes, that is my actual name. Today's episode, we're going to build a Warcry warband. As some of you might know, I'm actually a huge fan of Warcry. I think the sculpts are some of the best Games Workshop has done, hands down, and while the rules are a little bit simplified, I kind of like that easy beer and pretzels kind of vibe to it. And the fact is, with the random element of the cards, it really is that chaotic feel of the game. So I'm going to go down to the store and pick up one of the box sets. I'm kind of leaning between Cypher Lords and the Serpent Warband. Probably heavily leaning more towards the Cypher Lords, though. I think they do look kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go pick up a box, we're going to build everything, I'm going to come up with some concepts, and then we're going to paint it all and try to capture it over the next weekend. So let's get started. Well, here it is. I got the Cypher Lords for Warcry. I think they're one of the coolest looking warbands. Like, these sculpts are incredible, the poses are really cool. And I'm getting kind of inspired here, because like you can see they got like the raised legs, they're doing the martial art poses. And I'm coming up with an idea that I kind of want them balancing off of maybe some rubble or maybe some ruins or something like that. You even get that kind of vibe on the front cover here, you know, you got them sort of bouncing off the rocks. And yeah, so I got some ideas brewing here, and let's see how it turns out. So I'm going to start building, we'll go from there. Well, I have the entire warband built now, and look at these poses, that's just so cool. These models are really, really awesome. I really like the crows as well, but I think these ones are my new favorites. Like, just the way they're posed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I kind of wanted to make some custom bases, so I came up with some stuff like this. You know, just some of the ruins from the Warcry terrain set, some of the other pieces. And I basically want to have them, like I said, just sort of bouncing off stuff. Like, have him doing a backflip off of the scenery piece. That's probably how I'm gonna. Still haven't worked out the details. I might have them a little bit higher, but I think that's actually pretty good there. So he's just doing a backflip off of that. This gal here, she's like posing, doing some stuff. Maybe I'll have her bouncing off the wall itself. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, that's the idea, and I think this is gonna work. Alright, we got some updates here. So, I've been working with the other guys. Check that out. So we got her doing almost like a crane pose with her glaive. This one I'm really happy with. This one was a little bit awkward to pose, but still have him balancing on the one leg. The twin swords. I went with a lot of the twin swords for this warband. There's something cool about that. Plus they get more attacks, and he's bouncing precariously on the ruins. This one here, I like that one. And I got one of the ones. I think that's the luminous. I think they're called. And bouncing off that ruin. And then we got the sort of the geisha character. I haven't glued on the big the hair that comes out the back yet. I'm not sure how I want to stylize it, but I like the base. I might add a little bit more just so it doesn't look like it looks a little bit skinny there. Like, how's this, you know, balancing there? But overall, I like the idea of this one, that she's on like a little bit more solid of a base. So overall, it is coming together. All right, here we go. Assembly is now done. And I think these guys are looking amazing. So I did a little bit of the sand along the bases there just to fill it out a little bit. I think I'm going to add a little bit more, maybe some rubble. It looks a little bit barren on the bases. But overall, I'm loving the poses. I think some of these really came together. I really like that guy doing the backflip there. Yeah, this is really coming together quite nicely. Like I said, I'll add a little bit more. It's a little bit barren. But overall, yeah, I think I'm going to start priming them, and I'll start coming up with some paint ideas.
After priming the model with some black acrylic paint, I'm going in with my first layer. We're going to take some generic brown and do a dry brushing across the entire surface. I've decided to go for an Egyptian style theme, so the brown layer will make a great starting point for both the skin color and the sandstone that's going to be covering all the bases. Alright, we're going to start working on the skin tone, and this is going to be a three-parter. First up, we're going to start with light orange from Vallejo. Now, try to keep it in the lines as much as you can, but don't worry, we'll be doing those segments later in a final coat, so just do your best, keep it in the lines, and have fun. For the next layer, we're going to use Salmon Rose, also from Vallejo, and do a medium dry brushing across all the skin areas. Not really much more to add to this one, so I'm going to do a time lapse and we'll jump to the next segment. For the final layer, we're going to use basic skin tone, also from Vallejo. And this is going to be a medium dry brush as well. There'll be a little bit of the other coat sort of shining through, a little bit of the brown even. But overall, this is a relatively straightforward skin technique. And yeah, I don't think you can really see it as clean here, but yeah, it's kind of my go-to actually. Next up, we're going to start working on the metallic colors, and we're going to use a gunmetal color called Lead Belchers from Citadel. I'll apply this to the blade, the belt buckle, the helmet, and the chakram in her other hand. And every time I see this model, it always reminds me of Xena, Warrior Princess. It's kind of an iconic weapon for her, and I haven't really come across other IPs where the character uses this kind of weapon. If you know another series, put it down in the comments below. Next up, we're going to use some Warplock Bronze, and this I'm going to apply to the handle of the weapon, the center of the belt buckle with this small Eye of Ra kind of symbol. At the base of the helmet, there's a cylinder that holds up the plume of hair, and on the headpiece itself, there are these sun rays that come off of it. Some of these I'm going to do in blue, and some of them will be in this Warplock color. Next up, we're going to use Genus Gold over everywhere we just did the bronze color. Now this one you almost want to dry brush across the surface. That way the bronze will be underneath inside all the shadows, and this gold color will be over top of everything else. It's going to give it a nice contrast, especially when we ink it later on. And I think this is probably my favorite way of doing a goldish tinge. Alright, we're going to start working on the blue areas of the model, and for this we're going to start with a layer of Sotek Green. So this is going to go on the loincloth, the scarf that's wrapped around her chest, the straps that come off, and the sun rays that are built into the headdress. Some of them are going to be the gold color, like mentioned before, and some will be blue. Oh, and the giant thing of hair that's coming off the base of her helmet. Like, how would you even fight with all of that? Isn't that kind of like a liability in battle? Ladies, let us know in the comments down below, how do you fight with 4 feet of hair? Is she onto something that you don't know? Is she like on another level? Should you be taking notes? Should I be growing hair? After trying and failing desperately to beat my male pattern baldness, I decided to move on to my next step. That's going to be with some Temple Guard Blue. Now for this layer, we're going to do a light dry brushing across the giant hair piece and the loincloth, and everywhere else we're going to do a very thin layer with a very fine brush. Next up, we're going to take 2 parts white to 1 part Temple Guard Blue to make a very light color. This, I'm going to do a very light dry brushing across all the surfaces we've previously done. And again, a very fine line along the straps and the small areas within the sun rays. Next up, I'm going to use a very dark chocolate color called Rhinox Hide. And this I'm going to apply to all the leather pieces, on the arms, the legs, and the sandals. Not much more to say here, just be very careful. On this model in particular, there's multiple straps along the arms. There's skin in between them. Sometimes I'll fill it in just to make it look like a solid gauntlet. Some of them I did a little bit of silver detail in there. Totally up to you what design you want to go for. For these ones, I actually kept them very simplified. You'll notice it's just loincloths, basic leather sandals. The officers have a little bit more gold and silver in their chest plate, but for these ones, relatively straightforward. After all, they're thralls, and I think they're meant to be disposable infantry in the lore. Being being relatively satisfied with how the model's turning out, I'm going to start working on the base. Now we already have the brown coat laid down over top of the black primer. Now we're going to go in with some mocha brown. And this is just a generic color that I picked up at the dollar store. Nothing really fancy here, just do a light dry brushing across, leaving a little bit of the brown sticking out, like so. Once that's fully dried, I'm going to take 1 part white and 1 part mocha brown to make a lighter sand color, and dry brush that across the entire surface. In particular, I'm going to focus a little bit heavier on the edges. Next up, I'm going to take 3 parts white and 1 part mocha brown to make a very light color. And this I'm going to dry brush along all the edges once again, and then do a light dusting across the entire surface. Once my base is fully finished, I'm going to go back in and do a final layer of metals. And this is a platinum silver color that's called Ruin Fang Steel. This one I'm going to use along the edge of the blade, the headdress, and you'll notice in the base of the rock there is a ring that's been bolted in there. So, since my stonework is all done, I can do the metals over top without getting in the way. Now that we're finished painting and giving it plenty of time to dry, we'll go in with our final layer of Agrax Earthshade. This liquid shadow will get into all the nooks and crannies and really bring this piece to life. It makes everything look worn and aged from the cloth, the stone, etc. Now, if you don't happen to have this handy, you can always make your own by diluting down heavily 1 part black and 1 part brown, sort of mixing and matching it until you get the color that you like. And in a pinch, just dip your model in your paint water and see what happens. And on that last sarcastic note, we are finally finished painting this model piece. I really like her, I think the Thrall turned out really good, and I hope that I got some good shots during the filming process. Now for me, I really like this next piece, the one that was doing the backflip off the stonework. I think he turned out great, and this is what happens when you come up with a concept. Now, mind you, mine was parkouring Egyptian ninjas, but you know, I think it works. I think this does it. So I hope this inspires you guys to come up with your own crazy ideas, and we'll catch you on the next one. Well, that's been today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, maybe found some useful information in there. If you did, make sure you hit the like, the share, subscribe down below, and please pass this around to all your friends. We're really trying to build this from the ground up. And if there's anything that you want me to build in an upcoming episode, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll be able to get to it in an upcoming episode. On that note, I've been Mr. Waugh from Mr. Waugh Media. I hope you were thoroughly entertained.